So why does Bristol or Bristol City Council need a futures group? I guess there are two ways that you can perceive the future. You can perceive it as something that just happens. So we as Bristol City Council just sit around and wait to see what sort of things happen over the next couple of years, and we respond or don't respond as we see fit. Or we can take a view that the future is something that we can help shape and create, and that there are opportunities for Bristol that are worth us starting to think about and plan for now. And I guess Bristol Futures is recognising the latter. The future is something that cities and city leadership can help determine. If we want the future for Bristol to have particular characteristics, such as being mindful of things like peak oil, if we want it to be around the green and sustainability agenda, if we want it to be about creating jobs and growth at a time of economic recession, then none of those things will happen unless we have an approach that says, here we are and this is where we want to be. So I see futures as being about leading the key objectives for Bristol, which are to make us a successful, inclusive, green and digital city. And the final thing to say on why you need a futures team is because your future is inextricably linked to where you've come from. And the reason that Bristol has identified those themes of green and digital and economic strength are because they are ones that are part of our story. We know that we have a strong community both on the green and the digital side. We know that economically we've been pretty successful as a city. So we can't just create a future without it being based on something that's real and something that is part of our story. So it feels absolutely right to everybody that Bristol Futures should be championing those particular priorities in terms of where the city goes next.
So Steve, what is it that you would like to achieve over the next 2 years through the Futures Group?
Okay, so the future is quite a big place, and it would be easy to plan perhaps too far into the future. But I think where we're at is that we can see, certainly up to 2020, which is where our carbon reduction targets are aimed at. And so our plans and our thinking around what we want to achieve are very much within that sort of 5-6 year timescale. The opportunity for Bristol to become far more self-sufficient in terms of the way that it produces energy, for us to have a greater focus on renewables, for us to create a stake in the sort of energy market so that we aren't dependent on oil and factors that we can't determine in terms of price and supply, all seem absolutely right for a city like Bristol if we're going to guarantee our future success. So we're very active in that space. We want to create our own energy company for the city, which will significantly invest in renewable energy in Bristol. We want to make sure that things like the Green Investment Bank, the first bank of that nature, ends up being in Bristol, so that we can have that influence over the way that investment is made nationally. And we want to maintain our links into the community so that people in Bristol who are environmentally minded become the norm, and that their influence and their way of doing things and their way of thinking about the city characterises how we operate as an environment. And I guess what we know is that the sort of digital is an equal strength, and it's also an equal enabler of some of those bigger aspirations around carbon reduction. As Dr. Chris Tuppen said to us in the Smart City report that he published for us last year, there's no way that a city like Bristol could reach its carbon targets without being a smart city. And what we mean by that is one that's using ICT and connectivity to help us bring about the sort of changes and transformations that we will have to make, both to the economy and the way that we live, in order to meet those big 40% targets that we've set. So I want to make sure that our strategy around broadband is exemplary, and that as many businesses and communities have access to high-speed connectivity, tomorrow's connectivity today. And I want to make sure that as many people as possible have got the skills and the confidence and the capacity to benefit from that connectivity. And I think the final thing that we are now faced with, which is such a fantastic opportunity for us, is our enterprise zone. So Temple Quarter, probably the grottiest entrance to any city, any core city in the UK, will become a showcase green and digital quarter for Bristol. And if we can make it part of the experience that people have every day as they travel into Bristol, then it will help us to cement that ambition in a very, very physical and practical way.